Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a point when a woman becomes deeply grounded, calm, and quietly strong in a way that cannot be ignored. Not because she is loud or trying to prove anything, but because her presence changes the energy around her, and when she is not there, something feels missing. Not because she was chasing attention, but because she carried a kind of peace that people slowly got used to. When she stops chasing, when she protects her own peace, when she walks with quiet confidence that does not ask for approval or try to explain itself, something inside others begins to shift, and suddenly the same people who once overlooked her start thinking about her in silence. Stay with this, because the real shift is only starting to unfold. There is a moment when she understands that silence can be more powerful than constant explaining. Not because she is playing games or holding back emotions, but because she learns that self-worth is shown through actions, not endless words. One of her quiet changes is choosing peace instead of constant conflict. She stops reacting to every small trigger, she stops arguing with every misunderstanding, and she allows calmness to speak for her instead. When a person realizes they cannot easily pull her into chaos anymore, they start to feel her absence differently. It becomes uncomfortable in a way they cannot explain. Another shift happens when she stops repeating herself. She says what she means once, clearly and calmly, and then she lets actions follow. No begging, no chasing, no over-explaining, just clarity. And in that clarity, something inside the other person starts to wake up, because respect grows where limits are real and steady. Then comes the shift of focus. She slowly turns her attention back to her own life, her growth, her dreams, and her purpose. Not as a strategy, but as a natural return to herself. She becomes busy building, learning, and improving, and her world starts to feel full again. That kind of energy does not chase anyone, it simply attracts. People start to notice that she is no longer trying to fit into spaces where she is not valued. She is not competing for attention anymore. She is simply living. And in that space, others begin to realize she cannot be controlled or taken for granted. She can only be met where she already stands. Keep watching, because this is where the emotional shift becomes even stronger and more noticeable. Another quiet change is how she handles her reactions. She does not rush into emotional responses anymore. She takes a pause. She thinks. She understands what she feels before she speaks. This calm behavior changes everything because it shows emotional strength, not weakness. She also starts observing more and speaking less. Instead of explaining her worth, she watches actions carefully and lets consistency reveal truth. She no longer competes for a place in anyone's life. If she is not chosen with respect, she simply steps back without drama, and that quiet decision echoes louder than any argument ever could. She takes care of herself, her appearance, her energy, not for approval, but because she respects her own reflection. And slowly, without force, she becomes someone who is felt even in her silence. You no longer compare yourself with other women. You stop measuring your value through someone else's attention, approval, or silence. You stand in your own space, knowing that what belongs to you will come with respect and stay with sincerity. A woman who is not fighting to secure a place in someone's world slowly becomes the woman others feel they must rise to meet. And then there is the shift of emotional independence. When your happiness is no longer tied to how a man behaves, when you do not collapse every time he pulls away, when you do not lose yourself just because he failed to meet a need, something changes in how he sees you. He starts to understand you are not dependent, not fragile, not waiting to be completed. You are already whole, you are complete, and you are someone he can appreciate, but never control. That realization creates both respect and intensity because it removes entitlement and replaces it with awareness. One of the strongest silent moves a woman can make is stepping away when she is not valued, not in anger, not in drama, not with long explanations, but with quiet dignity. You simply remove yourself from situations where your presence is not respected. You step back from conversations that drain your energy. You release connections that no longer give you peace. And you do it without noise, without proving anything, without needing validation. That kind of exit leaves an impact because it shows clarity, it shows self-respect. It shows that access to you is not automatic, and when someone realizes a woman who once gave warmth is no longer available in the same way, the absence speaks louder than any argument ever could. Stay with this, because the emotional shift here runs deeper than it looks. Then comes the quiet transformation of choosing your emotional well-being over the need to be chosen. You stop trying to rescue connections that are already breaking. You stop forcing conversations that feel one-sided. You stop apologizing for having standards that protect your peace. And in that process, you become stronger without even trying to look strong. A man is affected deeply by a woman who does not lose herself in him. It changes the dynamic completely. Another silent move is mystery, not created through distance or games, but through pacing. You do not reveal everything all at once. You do not hand over every feeling instantly. You allow connection to build step by step, naturally. That slow unfolding creates depth, curiosity, and presence. It is not about hiding, it is about timing. It is about letting someone earn deeper understanding instead of receiving it instantly. You also begin raising your standards quietly, without announcements or explanations. You simply stop accepting what no longer feels aligned. And when someone realizes that old behaviors no longer get the same access to your time or attention, they feel the shift immediately. It forces reflection without a single argument. At the same time, you start valuing your own happiness more than the idea of being loved at any cost. You protect your peace first. You do not chase what feels uncertain. You do not cling to what feels unstable. And slowly you become emotionally steady in a way that cannot be easily disturbed. Keep watching, because this is where your energy becomes unforgettable in a different way. And then there is the silent power of being genuinely happy from within, not depending on anyone to complete your mood or define your day. When your life feels full on its own, your presence becomes different. It is lighter, calmer, more grounded. People notice it without understanding why. A woman who is fulfilled does not chase attention. She carries it naturally. Another quiet shift is when you stop over-giving. You no longer invest too much too soon. You no longer pour energy where effort is not returned. Instead, you observe, you allow balance to show itself before you give deeper parts of yourself. That change is subtle but powerful. It signals awareness, not desperation. It signals value, not fear. And finally, there is patience, real patience. Not waiting in anxiety, but allowing things to unfold without forcing outcomes. You are not rushing to be chosen. You are not pushing for fast answers. You are steady in your standards. And that steadiness creates pressure in silence because it is unfamiliar to those used to urgency. When disappointment comes, you do not explode or break down. You breathe, you adjust, you learn, and then you shift access quietly, without punishment or emotional chaos. No shouting, no begging, just change. And that calm response, that controlled distance, often speaks louder than anything said out loud. That emotional maturity is rare. It makes him reflect on his behavior in a way loud reactions never could. A powerful and often overlooked shift is when you invest deeply in your emotional control. You no longer chase reassurance. You no longer panic when someone becomes distant. You no longer depend on constant validation just to feel stable inside yourself. You carry a sense of inner balance that does not shake easily. And in that calm strength, something changes in how a man perceives you. He begins to feel that your presence is not something guaranteed, but something valuable. He starts noticing the difference between a woman who needs him to feel whole and a woman who simply chooses him from wholeness. And that difference does not just attract attention, it creates reflection. Stay with this, because this shift becomes even deeper as it continues. Then comes the silent responsibility of building your own life. You stop blaming others for where you are. You stop letting external circumstances define your happiness. You take ownership of your choices, your growth, your direction. You become someone who is actively creating, not waiting to be saved. That kind of woman becomes deeply memorable because she is not depending on anyone to complete her story. She is already writing it. She becomes a partner in life, not a passenger. She adds to a man's world, but she does not revolve around it. And slowly he realizes he is not the center of her universe. And that realization changes everything about how he values her. Another quiet but powerful shift happens when you stop returning to patterns that hurt you. You close doors you once kept half open. You stop accepting inconsistent attention, half effort, or emotional confusion. You choose clarity over potential. And the moment he understands that you are no longer available for the same old cycle, something inside him tightens, because he realizes access to you is no longer automatic. He realizes comfort has been replaced by consequence, and that shift often hits harder than any argument ever could. Keep watching, because this is where emotional distance begins to transform the entire dynamic. There is also the quiet strength of staying curious about life. You keep learning, you keep growing, you keep expanding your mind and your interests. You refuse to become stagnant, and that evolution makes you magnetic in a different way. Not loud, not forced, just natural. People notice when your thinking deepens. They notice when your confidence expands without effort. They notice when you are no longer the same version of yourself you were before, and that growth creates a kind of attraction that cannot be faked. It comes from within, and it stays. Another silent shift is how you respond to inconsistency. You no longer chase mixed signals. You do not beg for clarity from confusion. You simply match energy with awareness. Distance is met with distance. Silence is met with calm acceptance, not out of pride, but out of understanding. You allow people to reveal themselves through their actions, and you respond accordingly. This level of emotional control unsettles those who expect reactions they can predict, because suddenly they cannot pull you into emotional chaos. You are steady, observant, and grounded in your peace. Then there is the transformation of no longer apologizing for your needs. You stop shrinking your standards to be easier to love. You stop pretending you want less just to keep someone close. You speak clearly about respect, consistency, effort, and loyalty, and you do it without fear, without over-explaining, without hesitation. A woman who knows what she wants becomes impossible to ignore because she no longer negotiates her worth. She simply lives it, and the man either rises to meet that level or realizes he cannot. Another silent move is removing yourself from anything that drains your energy. You stop engaging in confusion, drama, and emotional exhaustion. You choose peace over chaos, even if chaos once felt familiar. This shift changes your entire presence. People feel it before they understand it. They sense when you are no longer available for emotional turbulence. They sense when you have outgrown old patterns. And that silent upgrade in your energy changes how you are treated, even without a single word being spoken. And then there is the balance of softness with strength. You remain kind, open, and warm, but you do not abandon your boundaries. You love without losing yourself. You care without collapsing your standards. This combination is rare, and it creates a powerful presence that cannot be easily dismissed. Because softness alone is overlooked, and strength alone is feared, but together they create something unforgettable. Another shift is when you stop trying to prove your worth. You do not compete for attention. You do not explain your value. You simply exist in your truth. Your energy, your actions, your consistency become your statement. And that quiet confidence removes any need for persuasion. It shows you already know who you are, and you are not waiting for anyone to confirm it. And finally, one of the deepest silent moves is embodying self-love so fully that it changes everything around you. How you speak to yourself, how you care for yourself, how you protect your time and energy. It becomes visible in your choices, in your boundaries, in your presence. And this is the part that cannot be ignored. Because when a woman stops abandoning herself, she stops accepting anything that requires her to. And that is where her energy becomes unforgettable. Not loud, not forced, just deeply felt in every space she enters. You step back with calm control. You allow your absence to speak louder than your presence. The silence you create is not empty, it is full of meaning. In that space, something starts to change in how he thinks. He begins to notice what he took for granted. He starts to feel what your attention used to feel like. And now it is gone. That gap makes him reflect in ways words never could. Stay with this idea, because this is where things start to shift deeply. Another silent change is when you learn to say no without guilt. No to disrespect, no to confusion, no to mixed signals, no to being kept as an option. Your no becomes clear, calm, and steady. You don't argue, you don't fight, you just decide. And because there is no anger in it, it becomes stronger. People notice when a woman stops needing approval and starts choosing herself. That kind of energy is both grounding and unforgettable. Another powerful shift happens when you stop explaining every decision. You don't feel the need to justify your choices again and again. You move when you need to move, you stay when you want to stay, and you pause when something feels off. No long speeches, no overthinking, no endless reasons given to make others comfortable. You let your actions carry the message. You let silence do the talking. And in that silence, Curiosity grows. He starts wondering more, thinking deeper, trying to understand what you really stand for. Keep watching this part because it changes the whole dynamic. Another shift is when you stop responding to low-effort behavior. No more excitement for last-minute plans, inconsistent messages, or half-present energy. You don't punish, you don't chase, you simply stay neutral, calm, balanced. You match energy instead of overgiving, and that neutrality becomes a mirror. It shows exactly where things stand, without you saying a word. Then comes a deeper transformation in how you carry yourself. You allow your natural softness, your calm presence, your emotional warmth to exist without forcing it or hiding it. You are strong, but also gentle, independent, but still open. And this balance is what makes your energy feel different. It is not performance, it is simply who you are. At the same time, you stop letting your mood depend on someone else's attention. If they come and go, your peace stays the same. If they are inconsistent, you remain steady. This kind of emotional balance is rare. Pay attention here, because this is where real attraction starts to change shape. When a man sees he cannot easily disturb your inner state, he starts to respect what he once took lightly. You also start building a life that is not centered around anyone. Your goals, your routines, your friends, your passions, your growth all become important. Your world is full, even without constant attention from someone else. And because of that, you are not waiting for anyone to complete your life. You are inviting them into something already whole. This removes pressure and creates natural attraction instead. At the same time, your care becomes selective. You are kind, but not available to everyone in the same way. You give attention where it is valued, and that makes your presence feel meaningful instead of expected. Stay with this, because it changes how people start to see your worth. You also begin to choose peace over emotional chaos. If something disturbs your stability, you step back instead of holding on tightly. You don't abandon yourself just to keep someone close. That decision alone changes everything. You start treating yourself with more patience, more care, more softness. You rest when you need rest. You speak to yourself with respect. You stop chasing what is unclear and start paying attention to what is real. And slowly you stop falling for potential and start seeing reality as it is. Not what it could be, but what it actually is. And from that clarity, something powerful forms inside you. A quiet confidence, a steady presence, a kind of attraction that does not need force because it naturally pulls the right energy toward you. You step back with steady control, letting your absence speak louder than any words ever could. The space you leave behind is not empty. It is meaningful. It is loaded with awareness. In that silence, something begins to shift in his mind. He starts noticing what he overlooked before. He starts feeling the weight of your missing presence, the warmth that is no longer instantly available, and that quiet gap makes him think in deeper ways than any conversation ever could. Stay with this, because this is where emotional change quietly begins to form. Another silent shift happens when you start saying no without carrying guilt. No to disrespect, no to confusion, no to unstable behavior, no to being treated as an option instead of a choice. Your no is not loud, not emotional, not defensive. It is calm, grounded, and firm. And because it carries no anger, it becomes unshakable. People begin to realize that your self-respect is not flexible anymore. That realization alone changes how they approach you. Another layer of this transformation is when you stop over-explaining yourself. You don't feel the need to justify every step, every decision, every boundary. You move when something feels right, you pause when something feels wrong, and you leave when something no longer aligns. No long explanations, no endless reasoning, no convincing others to understand you. You let your actions define you, you let your silence carry meaning, and in that silence, curiosity begins to rise. He starts wondering more, questioning more, trying to understand the depth behind your choices. Keep paying attention here, because this subtle shift changes everything in the dynamic. Another change happens when you no longer respond to low-effort energy. You don't get excited for half-hearted messages, last-minute plans, or inconsistent attention. You don't punish it either. You simply stay neutral, balanced, unmoved. And that neutrality becomes powerful because it reflects reality without emotion distorting it. Then comes a deeper evolution in how you carry your presence. You allow yourself to remain soft, expressive, and open while also staying strong, aware, and grounded. You don't hide your feminine flow, but you also don't lose your boundaries inside it. This balance creates a presence that feels rare and noticeable without trying. At the same time, you stop letting external attention control your internal world. If someone comes closer, your peace stays. If they pull away, your peace stays. This emotional stability becomes your silent strength, and people feel it immediately without you saying anything. It changes how they respond to you, because they realize your mood is no longer something they can easily disturb or control. You also begin building a life that stands fully on its own. Your goals, your daily routine, your growth, your friendships, your passions all become central. No longer centered around waiting or expecting someone to complete it. Instead, your life is already full, already moving, already expanding. And when someone enters that space, they are not your source of happiness. They are an addition to something already whole. That changes the entire energy. Your care also becomes more intentional. You are kind, you are warm, but not freely available to everyone in the same way. You choose where your energy goes, and that selectiveness makes your presence feel valuable, not expected. You begin choosing peace over emotional chaos every single time. If something disturbs your inner stability, you step back instead of clinging tighter. You stop abandoning yourself just to keep connection alive. That alone is a powerful turning point. You start treating yourself with more patience, more understanding, more gentleness. You stop chasing confusion and start respecting clarity. And slowly you stop falling for imagined potential and start seeing real behavior clearly, without distortion. And from that clarity, something strong is born inside you. A calm confidence, a steady presence, a quiet magnetic force that doesn't chase anything, yet naturally draws the right people closer without force or noise.